going on, everyone? Thanks for taking the time to spend this next hour with me. Hopefully, you all will be able to get something out of this. But I'm really excited to talk about what I do for a living. So some of you may already know a little bit about myself and what we do or what I do as a home inspector. So I predominantly do new construction. That's what actually supports not only myself but my family. The home inspection industry has really blessed our family and has really just given us a lot. So I helped InterNACHI create the pre-drywall course that you all can see now online, which is really, really neat. So I believe there's hours, there's like hours upon hours of just what to do, what to look out for. But like AJ was saying, this is a culmination. This is to give you all an idea in terms of what the pre-drywall course is going to in person course is going to look like at the House of Horrors in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. So it's going to be again on April 3rd. The in-person course is going to be on April 3rd. So I hope to see as many of you as possible there. It's just like another added level of education that I think you just can't get from a webinar. You just can't get from taking that course. It's just like another way to just absorb that information. So just a quick shout out. I see a lot of you already on. So Brandon, thank you so much for joining. David, I see David's on. Thank you, David. Jermaine, I see you as well. So that's awesome. Thank you for coming. And hopefully, again, you guys get something out of this. So, all right, without further ado, let's go. All right, so the pre-drywall at the course at the House of Horrors, I think it's definitely something that's going to be able to help our entire community of home inspectors. Because what I hear from across the board, because I have a lot of friends from across the country, is that everyone wants more, just like more knowledge, like more training, more know-how around this world of new construction. I'm in it every single day. I would probably say probably 9.5 out of the 10 inspections that I do every single week are new construction. And one of the reasons why it's like 9.5 out of 10 is new construction is because I've stumbled upon this. When you think about it, when you help a family that a realtor has referred to you and they're doing a resale inspection, how many inspections do you get out of that? One. You get the resale inspection. What happens when you get referred a client by a realtor or by a coworker or a family member or friend, and they're building a new home from scratch? You get a whole bunch. You get a whole bunch. You could get a foundation inspection out of it. Actually, even before the foundation inspection, you could get a pre-pour inspection. You could get a pre-drywall inspection. Of course, don't forget the final inspection. But then also, there's an 11-month inspection too. Look at all those different types of inspections you can get off of one family. It's just it's like the gift that just keeps on giving, like over and over and over again. But what I realize is that's where I want to be. That's where I want to be. I want to maximize the amount of time that that I spend, because there's only so much time in a day. I also want to be as close to 100% referral based as I can. And what I've also found over time is that the new construction community of families that build homes, the propensity, the likelihood of them referring their friends, family members, and coworkers is exponentially higher than, for some reason, a resale family. I think part of it is just because the whole entire impression of what the experience is going to be like is that it's going to be an amazing experience from start to finish. There's going to be no hiccups. Everything is brand new, so there's going to be nothing wrong. And then when I start going through the different phases with them, it's such like an eye-opening experience. And I've heard it from so many different families. Bill, how is this possible? How does it get like this? Aren't there people that are supposed to be overseeing this? And the answer is yes. There are people overseeing this, but the defects are still here. So if it's in your house right now, guess what? It's probably in your next door neighbor's house. in their neighbor's house, actually in the entire community, because it's the same contractors, it's the same plumber, it's the same electrician. So if they made the mistake one time, chances are it's the whole entire neighborhood. We'll go into that, and we'll actually go into that in a little bit further. So let me just move this out of the way so I can see my PowerPoint here. Hold on one second. All right. So what we're going to be going over. So we're going to go over just really briefly, what are the differences? I think everyone knows, but we're going to touch on the differences really briefly. What is a pre-drywall inspection versus what is it like to do a resale inspection? Those are two completely different things, and it takes two different skill sets in order to be effective. We'll talk about why new construction is so important. We'll discuss the inspection process, but then also define builder tolerances and why they are so important. So, but before we go into that, so for those of you that don't know, so again, my name's Phil. I've been doing this now for about 5 years. I'm a certified professional inspector. I'm a certified master inspector as well. Really proud of that, by the way. I'm licensed in Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia, Florida. Just last year alone, this is actually pretty neat. Never thought this would happen, but we were flown down to Florida to inspect, flown out to Delaware, to Denver to inspect, and then incredibly fortunate to do a really cool $50 million home. Yeah, $50 million home out on the coast, Pacific coast of California. Shout out to Randy from Focus Home Inspections. Amazing team out there. So again, I focus on new construction. So what is a resale inspection? Really quickly, guys, and gals, indulge me. So a resale inspection is where you're looking at a finished home. It could be 5 years old. It could be 10 years old. Heck, it could be like 100 years old. And, and when you are doing a resale inspection, what are we looking for? I categorize it as we look for old age and damage. So how old is the water heater? How old is the HVAC system? Is there mold on the evaporator coil and behind the metal plenum that conceals that evaporator coil for the HVAC system? Are there pest droppings on the floor? That's what a resale inspection is about. But what about new construction? New construction is a completely different take. We're not looking for old age and damage. We're looking to make sure that the different systems and components are done correctly. That's different than old age and damage. And there, as I was mentioning before, there are typically 4 different types of inspections that a family can engage you on versus just the one inspection. And then new construction, they're so heavy on tolerances. So it's important to know what tolerances are all about, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So a little bit further into the presentation. So you've got, as I was mentioning, so you've got the foundation inspection. So what's really important when you're looking at foundation, is you want to make sure things like the actual walls themselves are actually not leaning, so they're standing straight up and down. What about the dam proofing? That is typically that black tar-like substance. Now it's actually not tar, but it's black tar-like substance that actually gets sprayed around the perimeter of the foundation. What does that look like? Do we have even coverage? What is how thick is that? Now this is getting way beyond what we're going to be doing today, but oftentimes these types of companies, they have these measuring cards with them that actually help them determine if they did a good job. And oftentimes, they want, when these things are sprayed on, they're looking for around like 60 millimeters in terms of thickness wet, and then 40 millimeters in thickness dry. Do we have any movement on the foundations? Do we have cracks on the foundations? So, that's one. Now, when it comes to pre-drywall inspections, that's when we're looking at all the different systems as a whole. So not only are you looking at framing, but you're also looking at plumbing. You're looking at the electrical wiring of the house. You're looking at HVAC. You're looking at the foundation again. There's a whole bunch of different things that go to into a pre-drywall inspection. And that's one of the things that, for those of you that have actually have been able to take a look at the pre-drywall course, that I wanted to really place an emphasis on is, what does the process look like? Because if you just kind of meander around the home during the pre-drywall phase and just kind of look for whatever that pops up in front of you, it's going to be really tough to be consistent. It's going to be tough to be effective. Plus, as these homes get larger and larger and larger, it can get very intimidating in terms of just the sheer size of it, because some of these types of inspections can go for a while. And one of the things that I have found over time is the more that you end up acquiring in terms of knowledge, shortcuts, the defects, as well as the tolerances, well, the longer these things go, because there's just more to look at. So very, very, very important to have a process. And then you've got the final inspection as well. So final inspection, it's a reconfirmation of what you're able to confirm with regards to the structural of the structure of the house. But then you also have, this is very, very heavy, and this is what's very different from a resale. It's fit and finish. So fit and finish are things like cracking on drywall, cracking on a stone veneer, floors that may not be completely level. So in our standards of practice as a community with InterNACHI, and when you go through it, is there any type of mention about cosmetics? No. Are we required to comment on cosmetics? Absolutely not. But if we're doing new construction, and if our end goal is to become a part of that community, to take advantage of the fact that we can possibly do or receive multiple inspections from that same family, should we be not further enhancing our knowledge around what is fair to ask for and what is not fair to ask for when it comes to cosmetic damage to the builders? Yes, because it's a very big part of new construction. So why should we care about new construction? So I wrote a couple of different thoughts down in terms of why I think new construction is where our industry is going to start trending. So according to Freddie Mac, this is crazy. 3.7. There is a shortage of homes in our country, a 3.7 million, and that's on the low side. Some other different entities think that it's actually closer to 7 million. The only way that we're going to get out of this housing condition that we're in, or in terms of the shortages, we have to start building more homes. Once we're able to start building homes, who's going to oversee that? There's already a lack of oversight. There's already this angst and anxiety in our different communities about the condition of the homes. And there's already a lack of knowledge around how these homes should be properly evaluated from our own inspection community. So if you're able to go into your own communities, regardless of where you are in the country, California, Florida, Denver, Texas, and all of a sudden establish yourself as someone that understands the ins and outs of the construction, your job and your ability to be able to pick up inspections every single day will be so easy. It'll be to the point where you're going to be turning people away left and right. I actually just started turning people away. So unless a family actually comes to me and they're already connected to me in some way, so unless they are already working with a realtor that I know, or they were referred by a friend, family member, coworker, I will politely decline and refer them to one of our other inspectors. So that's actually really, really cool. So I just started that this year. So that's like how many requests start to come in once the community gets wind that that you're like an authority figure in the space. So especially now the next one, it allows you to create like a specialized niche. So when you think about one of the things that Ben Grumiko says all the time is when we are selling ourselves and our company and our services to the community, we have to create overwhelming value. Right? The value has to be far exceeded, the perception has to be far exceeded. What we're giving to these families has to far exceed the cost. And if it does, then the cost is it does justify. So how do we justify the cost? How do we create an overwhelming value in the new construction space? It's by becoming an expert, essentially, or as close to an expert as you could call yourself, by familiarizing yourself with what are the tolerances. That is how you create overwhelming value. And then the other way that you create the overwhelming value is by being able to demonstrate that you are part of the community, that you're in it day in and day out. Now, what that's going to ultimately do is it's going to draw attention to you very, very, very quickly because not many people specialize in it. Not everyone does it every single day. So it's going to very, very quickly explode your growth and the amount of inspections you're doing every single day. So, but the other thing that's pretty neat about this is when you have a whole bunch of people that are asking for your services and constantly asking when are you available. It's like, hey, I heard from a family member's friend's coworker that you did such an amazing job on your house or on their house. Guess what you can do? Because not many people know what you know. You can increase your fees. You can increase your fees. Now, let me I can never remember this number. But okay. So according to Spector, the average national cost of a home inspection last year was $468. That was the average cost. Now, where I am located here in Maryland, it's $513. That's the average cost of an inspection in Maryland. That's really low. So this year we are now doing $884. That's our entry point. No questions asked in order to be able to do new construction for families. And it goes up. And then it goes up depending on the complexity, who the builder is, and what's in the house. One of the different ways that I evaluate, how I'm actually charging families when I'm doing new construction is I use 28 cents a square foot. So to give you an idea of how we actually price things. Now, one of the other things that I've found with new construction, that's also the reason why I think that everyone should have their foot into new construction, is because you're looking at the bones of the house day in and day out, every single day. When you go into resales, you're better able to picture the house completely deconstructed, and you can more confidently opine in terms of the condition of the house, in terms of whether or not you think something is concerning or not, with confidence, because you walk around homes that haven't been drywalled all the time. So that's pretty neat. But the other thing too, the reason why I like new construction is that in our industry, I think one, partly because there isn't enough sales training, is that it better insulates you from from what I call, and I've heard Ben call, a race to the bottom mentality in terms of pricing. So if you're able to effectively demonstrate that you are one of the few that truly knows what he or she is doing from a new construction standpoint, you're much better insulated from lowball inspection quotes, because you can effectively demonstrate that what the builder is going to say yes to and what they're going to say no to. And because of that, you ultimately have more control over the experience for yourselves, but then who you work with. With new construction, there are not a lot of realtors that are attached to these homes because most people think that they don't even need a realtor, which that's actually that's the exact opposite. They need a very good realtor to represent them. Everybody that the family talks to, up until the first point when they engage myself and my company, is representing the builder. Nobody's representing the family. They represent the builder's best interests. So it's important to make sure to let your realtor friends know that it's very, very important for them to be included in these transactions. But when there aren't a lot of realtors included, guess what? If you want to spend more time in the home, amazing. If you want to get more granular at the home, amazing. It's just you and the family wants you to be as detailed as possible. All right. Now I know I said I'm sharing a whole bunch, so let's just stop really quickly. Questions so far? Hey Chris, I see you on there. Thanks for jumping on, bud. Any questions so far? Questions? Anyone want to add a question into the chat box? No? All right. If you've got a question, let me know. Okay. All right. So the next couple of slides that I've added here is from the standpoint, or I coined the phrase, so don't throw this opportunity away, because I see inspectors throw it away actually quite a bit here, and I'll get to it I'll get to that in a second, because what you have from a new construction standpoint, it's gold, it's gold, it's platinum, it's really rare, and it's hard to break into this community. But once you're broken in, once you're a part of this like very specialized like cultish group, I mean, that's it. That's it. That's that snowball is just going to roll down the hill and you can't stop it. So the reason why I call it a cult is because the builder, what they're going to do is when they engage the family during their pre-construction meeting, they call it a pre-con meeting. One of the things that they're going to share with the family at the very end is, because they're going to try to handle the objection up front, is they're going to say, hey, so just so you know, we have a whole process here of how to inspect your home from top to bottom. You do not need to have an inspector. You do not need to have a third-party inspector to come in and look at our house. We have it under control. We've got you. There's going to be nothing wrong with it. How crazy does that sound? How crazy does that sound? No, 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 no. No, these families need to bring home inspectors in. But once the builder understands that you are not there to create a wish list, and you understand how they build from scratch, guess what? It's going to open up the door to you. Some of these builders will actually refer you to their families that they're actually helping, because they know that you're creating reasonable reports, which means they're taking your reports seriously. These builders are not required to look at your report. In most cases, they're only required to let you in. A lot of the builders will look at the first 5 things on a pre-drywall inspection report. If they deem that your report is frivolous, guess where that goes? In the trash, because they're not required. They are not required. But once they get the sense that you know what you're doing, they will absolutely look at your report. But the other cool thing about this too is that once they know who you are as a professional, and you are noting reasonable things, and we'll go over reasonable here in a moment, guess what? You can now start to also ask for things that are kind of in the gray area, where it's not quite exceeding tolerance, but it would be nice for the family to have. Some of the builders will actually do that because they respect you, because they know that you're not creating a wish list. So the more that you're able to bring easily readable reports where they don't have to hunt for things, and you're bringing them deficiencies or concerns that are exceeding tolerance, they will absolutely be more on your side. They will refer you. The builder will actually refer you. Isn't that, what did I just say? The builder will actually refer you to their families. And you'll also look like a hero, because those families didn't think that your report was going to pop up anything. And then all of a sudden, when it starts popping up a lot of deficiencies, guess what? Because these families oftentimes go several times a week to their new neighborhood, they see other new neighbors, and guess what? They all talk. They all talk. So let's see. Let's move on to the next slide. All right. So we talked about getting multiple inspections from the same client, and the fact that they're also more likely to refer, because they're all going through the same issues. Now, one of the other things that you can totally take advantage of, and the reason why I love new construction versus resales, is all these different new construction communities. In some way, shape, or form, they all gossip and they all talk about the different challenges that they have, how the builders respond to them, either negatively or positively, in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes that's through Instagram. Sometimes that's through Facebook communities. Sometimes that's through a WhatsApp group. So when you picture, the neighborhoods that are near you, think about all those different types of homes that are going up. All of those families are talking to each other, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's one of the reasons why I'm able to get so many inspections inside the new construction community. Because once I've done a good job for one, all of a sudden it snowballs. Versus if you were to do a resale, they may have a Facebook group, but they're all but the majority of the homes aren't changing hands. So new construction is where it's at. That's what you want to be a part of. That's where you want to be proficient at, and that's where you're going to make a lot of money at the end of the day. So the other thing on this slide that I think is really, really important is you want to create reports that inspire the community to act and not the other way around. So if you create reports that have almost nothing on it, or if you create reports that have conditions or deficiencies or deficiency or condition that you deem to be a deficiency that is not exceeding tolerance and the builder says no, that is not inspirational. You will not get referrals. That's why it's so important to make sure, even if you find only 10 deficiencies, 15 deficiencies, and they find their way onto your inspection report, you need to make sure every single one of those is legit. Because if you get 100% of those corrected, even though there's only 15, guess what? That family's going to love you. All right. So the other thing in terms of being able to get new clients is story sell. It's everyone's going to say well, I'm great, I've been doing this for a while, I've done this many inspections, this is my background, as a framer or as an electrician. Nobody cares. You will find that nobody cares. I'm sure that the majority of you agree with me, but stories, real life stories, that's what gets people engaged. So I wrote down a couple here on this slide to go over with you all, because I tell it all the time, and it really gets families like emotionally involved. So I was doing a home last fall, and it was a final inspection. It was a multi inspector inspection, and long story short, I noted two different sections of the floor that weren't even. So right at the bottom of the stairs for the front entryway, and then right at the top of the stairs for the second floor. Now, some of you may be asking yourselves, what do you mean by not even? What's an uneven floor fill? So I think the most common way for people to describe an uneven floor is a floor that's not level. But this is where it starts to get to be very, very granular in nature. And this is over time how you're going to be able to separate yourselves from the rest of the competition in your local area. As a building community, we actually define different types of flooring conditions. We define a floor that's not level, and we also define a floor that's not even. So I tag those two sections of the floor as not even, put it in the report. Now, the project manager called me the next day and said, very gracious, nice guy. He said, Phil, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm so-and-so. I helped to build this home. I don't know you, so I want to just introduce myself, talk about a couple of different sections in the report before I call the family and talk about what I'm going to be doing. And then he went on to say, so I saw that you said a couple sections of my floor wasn't level, Phil. And I said, no, I didn't say that there was a section of the floor that wasn't level. I said there were two sections that were uneven. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, according to the National Association of Home Builders Performance Guidelines, Rule 3-3-2, so Rule 3-3-2 says that if there is a small section of the floor that is uneven, which means there is a valley, so low spot, or a ridge, a high spot that exceeds the length of 32 inches with a gap or a height difference of more than 1/4 of an inch, you're required to fix that floor. That's uneven. Now, if I said that your floor wasn't level, that would change. It's no longer 3-3-2 of the NAHB. It would actually switch to Rule 3-3-3. And according to the performance guidelines, it says that I have to demonstrate to you that this condition exceeds the length of 20 feet with a low spot exceeding 1/2 inch. Dead silence on the phone. Didn't say anything. I didn't time how long it was silent, but he eventually broke the silence and he said, Phil, you're correct. I'll fix your floor. That's the power of knowing what tolerance is all about. You're going to look like a hero to your clients because the builder was pushing back, but then you've also now earned the respect of the builder, and they're going to look at your report much more closely because you weren't creating I wasn't creating a wish list. Because what ends up happening is if I didn't know that the National Association of Home Builders existed, and I had to demonstrate to the builder that this exceeded a length of 32 inches, what if there was a low spot in the floor, but it was only 18 inches in length? Technically, it's not even. It's there's a low spot in the floor. No one's disputing that. But according to the NAHB, it's not enough. That's the difference. And that's what I want you all to be proficient at. And once you can or demonstrate to all the different families in your local community that you know what you're doing when it comes to evaluating homes, along with knowing what the NAHB is all about, you will literally see your business explode. Because there are very, very, very few people in our community, in the entire country, that know about these tolerances and understand how to evaluate homes in this way. And it's very different from code. We are not code inspectors because we are not gainfully employed by the local cities and municipalities. However, we can look at the NAHB. All right, let's move on. So builder tolerances, like I was talking about, it's this acceptable range. National Association of Home Builders, for short, NAHB. So another story. So in my area here in Maryland, there are two consumer protection bureaus. One in Montgomery County, and I believe the other one is in Howard County. So this is the power of the NAHB. So the manager for Montgomery County that I know, he has the ability to completely shut down activity in a neighborhood based off of the builder's willingness to follow the NAHB performance guidelines. If the builder is getting a lot of challenges or is giving a lot of pushback in regards to fixing things, and if they are not fixing things that are exceeding the NAHB performance guidelines, that individual has the ability to shut down the entire neighborhood until the builder falls in line, essentially. Now, the other thing that's really, really interesting is when you look at all of the builder warranty brochures, you will find oftentimes that their warranties very closely mimic the NAHB performance guidelines. Now, there are some builders that will choose to exceed the performance guidelines, but at a minimum, this is the widely accepted rules. So NAHB. So that's why it's so important. So when you look at those different companies, it's very, very, very fascinating. So when you're talking to families, how do you know? So if something's going to be fixed, how do you know what the percentage likelihood that the builder is going to fix something? And how are you able to convey confidence to clients that you know what you're doing? And the builder is going to most likely fix the majority, if not everything, that you put on the report. Part of that is through the NAHB. This is one of the reasons why I win so much business inside the new construction community, because I'm not creating wish lists. Now, it's taken me a while. It's taken me a while to have a really good command of the NAHB performance guidelines, but I haven't. And the more I'm aware of these different things, the more requests that we get. So for example, so you guys heard and gals heard me talking about the uneven floor example. So that's rule 3-3-2. So you have to use a 32-inch length level, and then it has to be a gap underneath that level that's exceeding 1/4 of an inch. Now, if we switch out to, so now if I go down to the basement, that concrete floor, the tolerance has now changed again. It's no longer rule 3-3-2. It's now rule 2-2-3. Not crazy. 2-2-3. Now, it's still a 32-inch length rule, but the gap underneath the level now changes. It's no longer 1/4 inch. It's actually 3/8 of an inch. And then if the floor for that particular builder wasn't level, now we all know the difference between uneven and not level, right? Now, the floor wasn't level, that is rule 3-3-3. So as you can see, as you're talking to different families, and you're talking to them about, about, yourselves and your company and what you do and how much, you love doing new construction, being able to share the different types of stories that you may already have that you'll be able to be a part of over time and share rule numbers, you will be surprised at how quickly not only will you grow or the name will spread in where you're located, but you'll be surprised at the fees that you'll be able to command because you are now demonstrating to these families that you have something that not that no one else can do, which is a command of the NAHB. So, for example, a couple different builders. So Ryan Homes, so that is NV. So Ryan Homes is part of NVR. So in my area, so NVR is the third largest builder here in the country. So it stands for Northern Virginia Ryan. They're a mix between mostly in my area, NV Homes, so Northern Virginia Homes, and then Ryan Homes. They follow the NHB very, very closely. So let's say for let's foundation cracks, for example. They say if the crack has to exceed a quarter of an inch in width in order for them to fix it. Now, Toll Brothers, because they're considered to be luxury, they have actually chosen to exceed the NAHB performance guidelines. It's only an eighth of an inch. So when you're talking to families, it's very easy to say, so just so you know, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if I see a foundation crack on the foundation, which is very common, right? Because we all know that, that concrete cracks, if the crack is exceeding a quarter of an inch in width, according to Rule 2-4-4, the builder will fix it. And I can say that with 100% certainty because that's what it says in writing through the performance guidelines. Now, since this is a Toll Brothers house, Mr. and Mrs. Client, it'll actually change. It'll actually be a eighth of an inch. That's very, 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 that's like a very like a wow factor for clients when you're able to, to recite something like that. Now, for floors, for example, like we were already going over, Ryan Homes does indeed prescribe to Rule -3-3-2. So 32 inches, quarter of an inch. Toll Brothers again has chosen to exceed the NAHB because they just because they consider themselves to be luxury. So it only has to exceed a length of 30 inches. So they will fix more things. Now, if for some reason if your floor has heaved, if the floor has heaved in the basement, here this is interesting. Everybody lines up to the NAHB. If it has heaved more than an inch, then these builders are required to fix it. So if the floor has only heaved half an inch, guess what? You can tell the families that you're helping that you will put it on the report. You will see if the builder is willing to fix it, but technically they're not required to. Well, why? How do you know that the builder is not required to, Mr. and Mrs. Inspector? Because the NAHB, National Association of Home Builders Performance Guidelines, has already set the tone. Now, gusset plates. Gusset plates is one of the things that you will always find that are either loose, damaged, missing, over rotated, a lot of different types of conditions. Now, there's another governing body, if you will, that oversees new construction and provides guidance around how we need to feel about certain conditions, and that's called the Truss Plate Institute. So regardless of who is building the home, they will always initially defer to the Truss Plate Institute for initial guidance. Now, when you all start digging into the TPI, you will see they will provide additional guidance that says, now naturally, when you discover these types of conditions, you will want to have the builder refer these conditions to the truss fabricator, and then based off of how they've designed the home, make it easy to describe and understand, they will be the ones that will ultimately determine what is the best course of action for these gusset plates. But it's a group that emerged in 1961, and it was born out of the fact that we're using these metal plates to be able to connect everything together. But really, really, really fascinating. But this is one of the other things too that you'll be able to, once you're able to commit this to memory, is just really, really, really impressive, not only to builders but to anyone actually in the in the real estate industry. So for those of you that are around new construction in some way, shape, or form, you know that these gusset plates, we call them different things. I call them gusset plates, are always, they're always going to be, a little bit loose. Sometimes they're crazy loose. Sometimes they're, they're missing. But did you know that there is actually guidance with these plates from the TPI? So according to the Truss Plate Institute, they say that if the embedment gap, and that's actually how you define a loose gusset plate, if the embedment gap, because these plates are pressed into position, is less than 1/32 of an inch, then no worries. No worries, no action needed. If the embedment gap is anywhere between 1/32 to 1/16 of an inch, that plate where it's loose is only going to be 60% effective. If the embedment gap is anywhere between 1/16 and 3/32 of an inch, it's only going to be 40% effective in that area where it's loose. And then any embedment gap that is exceeding 3/32 of an inch, that is 100% loss in holding power. So one of the things that I do is I carry a ruler that measures 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch, specifically for this. Now I also carry it for other things as well, but for this is where I originally started using that type of ruler. So that way I can demonstrate to builders how big the embedment gap is. So Truss Plate Institute, really fascinating. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the Truss Plate Institute, in that Truss Plate Institute guidelines, but it's really fascinating. But there's only a couple different things that I think you're going to come across, and you're going to find that you're going to need every single day. Now, the other one that we're not going to discuss today is Rule 3.7.6.1. Isn't that crazy? 3.7.6.1. That is centered around connections for trusses. Most of the time, depends, but most of the time, if there's a gap in between the truss framing that is exceeding 1/8 of an inch, that is considered to be concerning. It should be shown to the truss fabricator, and they will need to determine what they want to do. Now, there are some areas, like in a splice or a scarf, I believe, where if the gap is exceeding 1/16 of an inch, then that is considered to be excessive, and that is centered around the bottom chord, so the base of the triangle, and that should be shown to the truss fabricator to make sure that those gaps aren't excessive and that the entire framing system can hold. So that's Rule 3.7.6.1 of the TPI. So that's another one that you can commit to memory over time and demonstrate to all the different families and realtors and builders that you know what you're doing, and you're the person that should be called upon every single time to do this. And also, when you're the only person or one of the few people that can actually start rattling these different types of things off, guess what? You get to increase your fees. And that's what we all want at the end of the day, right? We all deserve it. We spend a lot of time at these homes. We take the time to be able to, to educate and inform ourselves in terms of, how these homes are built. So why should we not be paid appropriately? So oftentimes, for these different types of pre-drywall inspections, and we'll go into it more into the in-person pre-drywall training course that's going to be in April. You're going to see loose gusset plates, damaged trusses, missing hurricane straps, nail lengths. Oh, this one gets missed all the time. It happens all the time. Incorrect nail lengths into truss and joist hangers. Oftentimes the length for shear nails are not the correct length, and it actually can result in a reduction in the listed load values of these joist hangers and truss hangers. See here, damaged flooring, uneven flooring. I mean, anything under the sun can happen. But that's one of the things that when we do the in-person pre-drywall course that we're going to use the House of Horrors for, which I think is really cool. One of the different sessions, one of the sessions in this in-person pre-drywall course that's going to be happening in April is we're going to use the House of Horrors and walk through it and use the process that I'm going to show you all in terms of how to inspect a pre-drywalled house. And we're going to look for these different types of defects and then practice our process. So that way it just becomes second nature. So, and you'll see this in the actual pre-drywall course that is online. But it's one thing to hear about it. It's another thing entirely to actually practice it in person. Also, but with me right there with you. So plus it's just easier to ask questions along the way, but you do again have to have a process with this. Otherwise it's just easy to get lost. So so in closing, it's there are several different things that's important to remember. So remember, builders are not required. They are not required to do what you say. And I 100% agree with them. I can't tell you how many times I've actually been shown inspection reports, pre-drywall inspection reports from other inspectors in my area where they did the pre-drywall inspection, and then I was brought in for the final because the families realized that they didn't know what was going on, and either there was nothing on the report, or they were creating wish lists, or they were creating things that are just mind-boggling. I kid you not. I literally saw a home inspector one time actually call out the temporary doorknob at the front entry, that the fact that it was rusted. A temporary doorknob was rusted. That actually went onto the report. Kid you not. I kid you not. Don't be that person. You just lost. You just lost that final inspection. I mean, the final inspection was free. That's a gimme. That's another inspection that you could have gotten, but because you didn't take the time to understand what the community is all about, now guess what? You just lost it. So don't be that person. Your reputation increases your effectiveness with the builders, but also it's going to increase the amount of referrals that you get. And you've heard me hammer this home over and over and over again. Your knowledge of tolerance is everything. It's everything. The more in-depth you have, the more in-depth knowledge you have of the NAHB, the TPI, and what your local builder does, the better off you're going to be for all the different reasons, that I mentioned. The more the builder fixes, it's what also it just also boosts your confidence that you know what you're doing. So the thing that I'll leave you all with in terms of tolerance and just fixing everything, because saying because I've been studying the NHB inside and out. It's easy for me to be able to say, well, if you have a stone veneer or brick veneer on the front, there's two different ways that we can get the builder to fix this. If the split or the crack is greater than 1/4 of an inch, I know they'll fix it. Or if I can see the split from more than 20 feet away, I know they'll fix that. That's rule 5-4-1 of the NAHB. Now, if you have cement siding on your house, if it's damaged, according to rule 5-4-3, it says that if that split is exceeding a length of 2 inches and has a width of more than 1/8 of an inch, they'll fix that too. I mean, I can rattle off a whole bunch of different rule numbers. So it can seem really overwhelming. My best recommendation is to start with memorizing the defects that you see the most consistently every single day. And it's going to be different from place to place. It's going to be different. But start creating a running catalog of what you typically encounter. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the NHB. You're going to have to get the performance guidelines. You'll have to buy it from them, but it's pretty nominal in terms of cost. And then you're going to start referencing during your downtime what you saw. And then when you see these things starting to pop up over and over and over again, you will now start committing those rule numbers to memory. And then that's how you'll be able to expand on your knowledge level. So let's see here. So there's a lot of different things that you need to do in order to be able to communicate effectively with the builders. So I know we're getting a little bit close. We're getting a little close on our timing, and I did want to leave some time for questions here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just open it up for questions. So also keep in mind, if for some reason if we're not able to get to all of your questions today, again, excuse me, we're going to be doing the in-person pre-drywall class on April 3rd up in Pennsylvania. But we can open it up to some questions now, and then see if we can answer a couple before our time expires. So Joe, Phil, will you please reference the NHB publication that works best for you? Yes. So once we're in that pre-drywall course, yes, we can go into that further. But I think a really great starting point for right now is just get your hands onto a set of guidelines. Start familiarizing yourself in terms of what pops up. Now, keep in mind the NAHB is not perfect. Not every single condition that you're going to run across exists or is commented on for the NHB, but it's what we have. But it does lend a lot of insight, and it will give you a lot of confidence when you're inspecting for families. You're welcome, Joe. What else, guys and gals? What other questions? Okay, awesome. I guess that means I did a really good job explaining. Alrighty. So I'm sure there are going to be more questions that pop up later. So you all know how to find me. So I'm on Instagram. The handle is homeinspector_Phil. If you want to email me, you can email me at phil@dancerandco.com. So again, Phil under dancerandco.com. And you can do it that way, or you can just call me directly too. So it's phone number is 301-351-2130. So Matt, hey Matt. So Matt just asked a question. So Matt said, I was under the impression that since we are not code inspectors, that we should steer away from even mentioning codes. Matt, you are absolutely correct. You are 100% correct. So codes. So we are not code inspectors, so we shouldn't be talking about things such as, oh, did you know, Mr. Builder, that your electrical wiring isn't secured every 6 feet, and it's and it needs to be that way because it's rule 1.1.1.1. It's like IRC or whatever it is. So no, so the NAHB is completely different from those sets of guidelines. The NAHB goes over the different types of conditions that are most prevalent in a home that are not tied to code. So they will go over things such as a post that's leaning, a metal support post like a Lally column, a foundation wall that's leaning to the left or to the right, a floor that's not completely flat, so that's uneven, or let's say for like glass, so like for a window. So did you know, this is really fascinating. I've never seen a builder actually hold them to this, but did you know that if you see a crack on a window in the glass, the only way that you can get the builder to fix it is if you can demonstrate that you can see the crack on the glass from more than 10 feet away. Here's the kicker. You have to be able to demonstrate that you can see it standing at a 90-degree angle. You could not say that you can see it from a 45-degree angle because that's too easy. That has nothing to do with code. But the NAHB has lots of different guidance around different conditions that have nothing to do with code. Like I was mentioning, Rule 5-4-1 of the NAHB comments about stone veneer and brick veneer that's damaged and split. Local code does not care about brick veneer and stone veneer that's damaged. That for the most part, that has nothing to do with safety, and that's everything to do with cosmetics. So that's why it's so important to know the NAHB. Now, are we required Are we required to know to know the NAHB inside and out as home inspectors? Absolutely not. But would it behoove you to know the NAHB performance guidelines inside and out if you want to be a part of the new construction community? And if you want to set yourself apart from everybody else? And if you want to be that person that takes not just the pre-drywall inspection, but the final inspection and also the 11-month inspection. So for me, that's 884 times 3 off of just one family. So even though I'm not required to know the NAHB inside and out, you bet I am going to, because that's how I separate myself from everybody else. Are there certain situations where we're supposed to speak up outside of the obvious material defects that are clearly unsafe or dangerous? Absolutely. So if for some reason, if you see something that's that's unsafe, dangerous, but you're not quite sure, if the NHB has opined on something like that, then just put it in there. Just put it in there. Loose electrical wiring, not in the junction box. Put it into the red category, safety concern, done. You don't need to say, oh, this is concerning 1.1.1 of the NHB. It's loose electrical wiring that's not in the junction box. Mr. and Mrs. Builder, please take care of it. Good question. So the NHB, to answer it in one more way, the NHB is not a set of codes, right? Because this is oftentimes not addressing safety concerns. The NHB is a widely accepted set of performance guidelines that helps the building community create a nice, safe, and beautiful home. It's their minimum standards. It is their minimum standards that is different from code. You're welcome. Hopefully you all have been able to get some type of some value out of this, and you're able to apply this and expand upon this in your own areas. And also, don't forget, so if you wanted to dive into this more in person, and take your business and your knowledge base to the next level, we're going to be doing this for the entire day on April 3rd. On April 3rd, up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, at the InterNACHI House of Horrors. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of knowledge. I'm gonna be teaching the class, and then yeah, hopefully we should all have a good time. See y'all.